Yeah, yeah. You think NPCs are evil,
Yeah, well, in
and
a more
it
general
doesn't
thing,
convince me yet.
yeah, a more general thing is that I've noticed that there's something paradoxical about this um, evil itself, but more specifically, this idea of what is called like non-dual awareness in some. Although I don't want to even introduce those words because I don't want to go there fully. I mean, but the vision of evil is fundamentally like separatist. Like it doesn't see in between, so to speak. So it is like those people are evil and we are good, right? If you see classically evil people, like the ones who we have enough evidence, maybe historically or whatever, to know, like, okay, this guy was evil. Their behavior is always like that, right? They're always projecting on the other, whatever the other is, the other country or the other race or the other football team or the other company or the other family or whatever it is, doesn't matter. It always comes with that, right? But there is a paradox because it's like when you can actually sincerely see the whole picture, which involves the whole thing. So not only either or, but both and. Then you can also see the either ors. It's interesting because you can see both the either ors and the spectrums. When people are under the grip of evil, so to speak, or they're evil, well, that's what I call being evil. It's like you are your state of being is you're being controlled by evil, basically. Um, they don't seem to be able to do that. But it is a bit confusing because, for example, they tend to say they tend to focus on the spectrum usually, right? And they think that by doing that, then they're not being evil. But then, for example, they will treat another human being as if they were a piece of shit because maybe they don't agree with their idea of the spectrum. That this is what's happening on the whole woke type of mentality, right? They say, oh, sexuality is a spectrum, and if you don't agree with their way of doing, then ironically, you're just completely evil, and then it's a completely either off thing.
Yeah, instead of true non-dual awareness, they just blend the two polarities.
Right, right. But then in
And
the
yeah,
vision of good, of actual good, which is non-dual awareness. I mean, I'm not saying that those things are the same because non-dual awareness has all this tradition, blah blah. But I'm just using the words here lightly.
yeah,
So in that vision, in the vision of goodness, you're capable of not seeing the separation, but you're also capable of just seeing simply the distinction. And that is, I hope, my position. That is like when I'm saying stuff like the NPCs are evil. It does not mean, and I'm sorry to be repetitive, even if I am, but especially because so the anyone who's watching this, please don't don't take this as an invitation for you to be a little shit. Like it's not like, oh, those are evil and we're not, or yeah, you shouldn't be an NPC because they're evil. That type of mentality is what I regard as an NPC in a way, or evil. So, but it is a really paradoxical thing that is like when you can see the unity in things, then you can also see the difference in things. And that aspect, I'm saying this because of what I was saying earlier. That's why in my life, at some point, I was like, I'm just gonna call it what it is, because it is important to also say, to also see, like, okay, no, there is good and there is evil, and yeah, like there are also distinct, completely different state of affairs, and yeah, that's what I mean.
But
So
I think that evil does have the non-dual awareness.
you think so?
Yeah, I think that evil does see the complete picture, at least just as well as the loving side does. I think you can't love without seeing the full picture, and you can't be evil without seeing the full picture. Yet they see the full picture in a sort of different way. They take a different perspective or different approach. But I think they're spiritual equals. You can't be you can't be evil or good
But that's
without
what,
seeing both sides. And so you're not seeing both sides and dividing the world up into sides would indeed be NPC behavior to me,
right.
but not evil, because evil sees the both sides.
Right, that's interesting though, because then I think we're basically just having a semantics difference here then. Because it's like, what I call evil is precisely NPCness. That's what I call, by definition, evil. That is the lack of being able to see the whole picture. And I was just doing that arbitrarily. I do think, I mean, I would argue with you that that is actually more proper, at least in the sense that if you, based on my experience reading like spiritual stuff, which I'm not an expert, so this could change in the future, that's a more accurate way of representing it based on what I've seen. And it's also the fact that the evil people that cannot see the full picture, they seem to want that. They seem to want to spread the idea that it's like, oh no, the good and evil are just two sides, like as if it were two lifestyles, as if it was like, oh no, it's just like, oh,
Yeah, I
haha,
pretty
bad
much
boys and
see it
nice
as
guys. And all this
I
bullshit.
see it pretty much as two lifestyles with wildly
Then you are in the
the,
trap.
no. It's just you can. There are multiple ways to God, and at some point, the evil side will collapse into love and goodness. It's a delusion. Remember, at some
There you
point,
go. Yeah, I
it
agree
will
100% with that.
collapse, but not at this level. So how I see it is humanity. When you're human, you can make the choice, good or evil. But at this point, these are still equivalent paths. So while good or love is the ultimate, ultimately that is the right answer. But we are at the level where we only make the choice for one of those, and the level where evil collapses into love, we are not at that level yet. So we are accidentally right. We have just chosen love as spiritual progress path as a form of preference, and after a while, it turns out that it's also the ultimate or the real one, but we don't know that yet. So in understanding, so we know it because spiritual teachers have said it, and we perceive it to be that way. But at this level, evil is still just as spiritually intelligent, so to speak.
But that's
That's how I see it.
okay. Like, because in general, I do think I do think we're looking at the same thing and using words differently. But then, okay, I have a question then. Like, what would you call what I call evil then? Which is like the lack of being able to perceive the whole picture, the lack of being able to see good and bad as two sides of the same thing. Because I could use the words good and bad just to make a distinction from good and evil. I could say in the world you have
Yeah,
like good and bad, and that I see it exactly as you described. Like I don't really mind. It's like a dance between those two. You know, like sometimes you're bad,
that's
sometimes you
pretty much nonsense, almost meaningless, right? The good and bad.
right. But that is what you were saying with the words
Yeah.
good and evil, right?
No, 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 no. I with evil, how I've said this before, but how I define, and it's not my definition. I've picked it up from other sources, but I agree with it. How I define good love is service to others. The orientation of wanting to serve the world, serve yourself through serving others. This is the so-called good orientation, true good. And the evil orientation is service to self. In other words, serving the creator, serving everything through serving yourself, because we're all a part of God. And once you, after a while, you start to see it. You know, you start to see yourself in other people, and you start to see other people in yourself. And once that starts, you can choose. There's an orientation. Are you going to serve yourself through others, or are you going to serve yourself, or are you going to serve others through serving yourselves? It's just like the opposite way to serve the creator. And one is good, one is evil. And this is like the true good evil path.
But
And
then
what I mean
don't you
with good bad is just pleasure and not pleasure, or that sort of stuff.
right? But don't you fall
Negative and
into
positive experience.
the don't you fall into the problem of the making the division when you think about it that way? Because I actually see those two things as
Yeah.
they either one of the same or they're the lie. Like you're either serving others and yourself exactly at the same time, or you're not doing any of those. It's as simple as that. Like I don't see those
Yes.
two things as a separate thing.
Well, yes, I think there comes a point where you see that those things are not separate. Um, but
Right.
I think that's not at this level yet. And um, the one who sees that they are not separate things, I think they would confirm me in that at this level they are separate things and not that they're actually NPCs. You know, seeing them as separate things, even though they're ultimately the same thing, but you don't truly perceive. There's a quite a difference between evil and good.
There
Uh,
is, but
but at some point, that even that distinction, you're sort of above that. Um,
the
but I think
distinction,
even those people will say, yes, at some point the one path splits into two, and after a while it comes back together.
yes,
Um,
I think
yeah, so
because
I don't mind um, making that distinction, because I don't think I'm at the level that I can truly see that, and I also don't have to be. I
yeah,
only have to walk the road of love somewhat blindly, you know?
yes,
But there's levels beyond that even, and the wisdom, and it goes farther. But I don't know exactly where I am on the path, but I do know where I'm at now, and where in what world I'm living, and what the direction and goal of this world is, and I just focus on that, and during that, I will maybe discover who I am, where I'm at. Um, but I don't think about that too much, because I think it's, at least for me, an insight above my standing. Of course, I can understand that you're serving the creator in a service through others, or you're serving the creator through yourself. And I can see within the love polarity that there's also a sort of service to self component and service to others component within the love polarity. But um yeah, the evil is not, yeah, yeah, I don't think I've risen above that distinction. But that's different than the good and bad. Good and bad is in the NPC world, but in, even if you transcend the NPC world and you go to the good and evil, or the love and whatever, anti-love or whatever it is that they do, that's separate. That feels separate, and they also don't live in each other's world. Usually,
Well, okay, but that's
they can't
interesting,
tolerate each other.
right? But that's interesting because I do perceive that when you speak about good and evil, you're making the same distinction that you describing as an NPC. Because for me, it is precisely like there's no distinction whatsoever the way I see it. I might be wrong, but maybe I'm not. Between serving others and serving yourself, like at all. Like if you're doing one, you're also doing the other one. If you're failing at doing one, you're failing at doing the other one, because it is precisely the lack of force in the distinction between yourself and the other. This does not come with the delusional sameness from the the modern leftist woke stuff that is like, oh yeah, we are the same. Let's let the Haitians in. No, let me make it clear. The Haitians will eat your fucking cats. So, and it is different. But so again, it is really interesting because the more clear it becomes in the mind, the lack of separateness, the more clear also becomes the practical and differences, right? In my experience, that's just the case. It's like, so
Yeah,
yeah,
and what I would
separ-
think about your way of viewing is, yeah, sure, I agree with that, but I think I would guess, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're maybe you're a very good master. Um, but what I would guess, that what's going on is that you are perceiving that lack of distinction, but still in the bubble of love or of goodness. I think,
but what do you mean by love? Because bubble, for example, bubble and love for me would be, if maybe I'm misunderstanding your words, but for me would be an oxymoron, because love only happens to the extent that you hold no illusions. So love and illusions are
mm,
almost like contradictory in as I understand it.
no, I don't think that love is the highest knowledge. I think love is blind, right?
Oh
Um,
no, okay, yeah, no, yeah, yeah, because
yeah,
that's worldly
but
love.
I think, no. Also the real love is
Is
also kind of blind.
do you think so? Wouldn't it be more like the contrary of blindness, which is like it sees what it sees, and but it doesn't. It's not attached to anything that it sees. Like it's not a. It's not like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's obviously also a way of seeing. Yeah, you also see more through love. Um, But I don't think that to be able to love is the end of all illusion.
Okay,
I think it's there's other energies and practices that are beyond that will also inform us eventually.
okay, but then we have to talk about love then, because I'm not sure what you mean when you say love.
What I mean with
Not that it's
love
easy
is
to describe, but like what would you
it's
say about it?
it's under it's understanding. It's seeing yourself in the other, or seeing the other in yourself. And when you do that, you cannot hate them, you cannot harm them. And a a desire to serve, to be good to each other, to whatever, you're also automatically interested, I guess, in when you see yourself in the other, and by that extent God in the other and yourself, when you see it's one in a way, then that's love. That's sort of true understanding to me. um but you don't, so you have a desire to serve others then, or yourself, when it arises spontaneously, when you see. But what is the best way to do that? How do you achieve the best effects, and etc.? This is not yet contained just in love. For that you need wisdom. And that's what I mean, and what I think is meant by love is blind. You see yourself in the other, but you still don't have a clear picture of God. You only have discovered, hey, I am in you, you are in me, and but yeah, that's like your latest insight. But you still don't see where you're truly going, or who the creator is, or what the creator is. You only see, hey, we are part of the same creator, and there's actually in some way no distinction, but there's still, you can know more, or see more, or understand, how you th- um that's how I see love. And that's, I guess, what I focus on. Um, and I don't know, I have a sense that I can also sense it in like authors, or at what level they are. For example, someone like Saint Augustine of Hippo. Um, he seemed to me to be clearly in the realm of love, but not beyond that. And someone like, uh, I think Shakespeare is beyond that already. He did. I sense more wisdom and stuff in those, but I don't. At the same time, I don't fully know what I'm speaking about. But I sense something. I sense differences. And I also, even before I knew the concept, the words for all this stuff, even before I read about it, I had it with authors already of the past. I could sense a sort of hierarchy of wisdom, or of knowledge, or of awareness, and I didn't have words for them. But yeah, I think love is not the highest place, not the end of all illusions yet.
Well, that's really interesting. That's really interesting because something that happens to me as well is that this same paradox that we're speaking about, the unity and differences, right? It happens to me also with all the virtues, for example, like love, wisdom, goodness, anything like that. That I have a strong sense, that I intuit strongly that they're all the same thing. They're all stemming from the same. point, if you will, which is probably what we could call God, and that there's not any actual distinction, for example, between love and truth. When you come lower to the lower you come to the earthly realm, you can maybe start making those distinctions. You can maybe, at least in practical ways, maybe sometimes you can. Sometimes it makes more sense to regard something as love and something else as saying the truth, for example, stuff like that. But I have this strong intuition that they are all the same thing. That there's like love and wisdom, for example, if they're actually what they claim to be, then they're the same. Wisdom and truth or truthfulness, if they're actually what they claim to be, then they're the same. Beauty and love and wisdom and truth, if they're actually what they claim to be, then they're the same. That's what I.
Well, obviously, like, but this is like an easy question almost, because obviously I know, I have read about, I have heard people say that obviously everything is the same in a way, is God, everything, and at the same time nothing. But uh, yeah, I don't know. For me, it feels like that's an insight above my standing. I can sort of sense it. I can also sort of sense a hierarchy, but I don't have the feeling. My intuition says that even though probably those things are true, that it's probably best to not focus on that, because yeah, because
Focus on what?
there's still merit in the distinction, I think, for me, and in the illusions, in the distinctions between these things, but because I think I am not
Why though?
equipped. Well, the same reason that you will teach a child in school. You will teach him like a simplified version, that's not the full picture,
Okay, I
because
see what you
that way
mean.
they
Yeah,
can
yeah,
progress.
I see
And
what you mean.
I think I have a feeling I can't handle it. I can't handle the highest level. So basically, I'm saying I'm not enlightened like the Buddha. So, and that's why I think yeah, there is I am going to live this life. I will reach my true point of consciousness where I'm at now, but that's not going to be the highest of all, and I have to go on with playing in the illusion. So it reads like that to me. It just reads like, yeah, if I personally would go that way, it would be like if I'm a child of 10 years old and an entrepreneur comes to your school and he says, "Oh, money doesn't matter in the world. It's all about this and that. It's all the same." And now I'm an adult, I can understand what such an entrepreneur would mean by that. But if I'm a child and I start believing that because I know it's true in some way, it's better to just go into the
Yeah.
distinct in the separateness to learn of and in
Yes.
the illusions.
Yeah. Well, that's this is so fascinating to me because again, I see like in order to see the separateness in the proper way, you will like to the extent that you do that, you will naturally move into the unity, into the yeah the point in which they all unite and they're all the same. I think it happens naturally. Like if one seeks to see those things sincerely, like if one seeks truthfully all those things, then that happens naturally. Like it's almost like you
Yeah,
need that point of unity to be able to differentiate things even.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that's what it reads like to me. Um, yeah, I don't know the. I think, for example, uh, someone like Eckhart Tolle, I think he is quite advanced, quite more advanced than I am.
There's one thing that I have about. Sorry to interrupt you quickly with this, but it's like there. I've seen like I like in general Eckhart Tolle. I haven't seen a lot of him, but seems solid stuff. I don't have anything negative to say. But there's something about these spiritual teachers, many of them, that I haven't been able to digest, which is like they all speak like in a super calm way, in such which I don't think that's wrong. That could be the way in which one of us
Not
speaks,
all,
and
not
no,
all
but
per
many of
se.
them, speak in such a way that is like that. That there's like on my mind, like if I were to see a video of them being like 3 years old and being like, "Mom, can I have a ice cream, please?" Then I would be like, "Okay, okay, they're actually like that, no problem, okay." But I have this little something there that is like, I don't know. But again, maybe I'm just looking from below and then, I don't
Well,
know.
Eckhart Tolle's main thing is exactly what you spoke about. He wrote a book, The Power of Now, right? And he says everything you seek is now. It's right here, right now. Everything is contained just in the now. Don't get not in time or the future, just now. Be here now, be aware now, here, and everything is in there. So in a way, he combines all these different things I'm speaking about. He combines that just into that message. And in his talks, he also sometimes touches some of these subjects, right? Of what love is, or what wisdom is. Sometimes he speaks about, but 90% or more is purely the focus on the sort of the unity that unites all of those things. Um, but with him, he what was a really nice moment for me is that he usually just says power of now, blah blah blah, the now, and he tries to get people into the now, to be aware in the now, and he doesn't theorize much. He just speaks a little, and in a very simple way that's very accessible. But he also sometimes he gives little hints. So he speaks about channeled books. He has spoken about that sometimes. People
About what,
ask him,
sorry?
and he about books that are channeled. Like channeled messages through that people receive from the
Oh,
ether,
okay.
and he's quite standoffish with that sort of stuff. He doesn't want to focus too much on that. But there was one book. He said, yeah, in the 80s, blah blah blah, some book was given to me, which was also channeled. And
Which
Eckhart
book?
Tolle said, the Seth material, it's called, I believe. I haven't read it, but
Seth.
he said,
Like,
Seth, the
okay.
Seth, I don't know, material. But he spoke about the book, and he said, just while he was speaking, um, yeah, this book, and it came under my eyes, and yeah, then someone is speaking named Seth, uh, an anti-god, and blah 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 blah, and he said a few things about it, and feel inside if it resonates. That's just general advice. Um, but he said an anti-god. He just said that in during the sentence, without any emphasis. Um, just so people like me could pick up on it. He basically said, "Don't believe this guy. He's evil." He's speaking from an evil perspective. So, of course, a channeled work, if entities are speaking to you, they can also be evil, right? And he just gave a little dog whistle or a little hint. He didn't say like you did. No, that's evil and blah blah blah, which can also be good, but his style is more to not put emphasis on all these distinctions and separations, but he does sometimes just does engage with it, just says a little something, because it is true that it exists in a way, and it can be helpful, and I think it is very helpful to talk about all the distinctions, because it's the same with the children and the teacher. The teacher knows the principle, and it all the distinctions don't matter to him anymore. But the children who are doing the homework, they should be yapping constantly to each other about all the intricacies
Yes, and
to
it's
learn it.
through the proper distinctions that you also go towards the proper unity, like to the
Yeah, that's the road, right? We see always that
yes.
that it's always
I
the
don't
same
think
road.
it's yeah, and I don't think it's only the road. I think it's they happen both together. Like it's like when you can see with when you can see the whole picture, then you can also see the distinctions. Like I think they go together. You cannot separate those two processes or whatever you can call it. I don't know if there are processes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I speak and tend to see things sometimes as more goal oriented or linear, but I get what you mean.
yeah, and that's why the part, for example, in the Bible in which Jesus Christ actually goes to the church and actually calls the people a brood of vipers and actually whip them out of there is important. Not in the sense that that you should imitate that same behavior randomly, but if you don't have that, then you also don't have the part in which he allows himself to be crucified. Like, and again,
Yeah.
I'm not a specialist in Christianity or anything, but in a very simple way for me, like you need to have both. Like if you don't have one, then the other one doesn't mean
Yeah,
anything.
and that's why this modern form of sacrifice is kind of fake, because we don't
It's
have that
evil.
other side.
Yeah, it's evil.
Yeah, it's just
In my
an
opinion,
offering.
I
It's
call
it's
it
an
it.
offering to. I do think that specific element
Yeah.
is has been put there by evil, at least, and is
Yeah.
serves the interests of evil. They're just
Yeah.
saying, make an offering to us of your body,
Pretty much.
instead of
Yeah.
offering your body and mind and heart, instead of like sincerely offering it, which would be the right thing to do.
Right.
Yeah, and so even someone like Jesus, in my understanding, is not at the highest level. He was at the highest level of love.
Why
He
not?
was like perfect love. But even Jesus has a long way to go.
In what way?
It, it,
Like I don't know.
uh,
I'm just curious.
well, he still has to learn the lessons of wisdom. Like the progression is, we're now in the third density, the human density with power and separate consciousness. Then you go to the fourth, which is density of love, and this is where good and evil both kind of have their separate worlds. They do interact with each other, but they can't really tolerate each other. Then you go to fifth density, which where you learn the lessons of wisdom. In this realm, there is still good and evil, so you have good wisdom people and bad, evil, wisdom people. And then in the sixth density, the good, bad, or the good, evil collapses into just love, just service to others in a way. And I think that realm is about the balance between love and wisdom, I guess. Um, and then you have the seventh density, and I don't know exactly, but it's about, I think it's unity or whatever, the true unity, right, with everything. That would be like and that would be the highest realm. And then uh, but I don't understand, I can't really talk about things I don't understand. But I've read this and it makes sense to me. But I I think and in some sources I've read, and it also I've read sources, but I'm not just saying what I read. I'm only saying things that I could sort of feel and confirm. I'm not saying things I can't understand. But in that source, it said Jesus was at the highest level of the, like, the fourth of the love density, and he came here as a symbol to show us where we're going, right, and to serve humanity in that way. But Jesus also has to go through he has to learn the lessons of wisdom, and he has to. Jesus is not the highest level of unity and awareness, in my understanding.
Okay, but well, the thing is that, for
And
example,
I
the
can
example.
sort of, yeah, I can sort of confirm this or feel this, because there's also authors, like writers of the past, that seem to have something extra that Jesus didn't have, some more, maybe wisdom. Maybe it's wisdom that I perceive in them. But I think Jesus feels sometimes a little flat in some areas, or little, yeah. Yeah, I sense that, but I also don't really know what I'm talking about. I sense it, but I yeah.